Hello, hello, hello. Do you know what? Are we in week 8, week 9? It's been a little while, but it's been a real delight. So I'm so sorry I don't have a solid sort of feel for how long we've been learning together. What a silly thing to lose track of. So, for those of you who've been with us the whole time, gosh, we've been doing this for a long time, and thank you. As you know, I'm Jess, and as you may know, today we're going to look at a couple of different concepts with positioning in CSS. And I always want to be really, really careful when I'm saying, hey, we're not really going to use these as often. So we're going to talk a lot about floats today, and I so actually I'll put this in the chat as well. So folks who are showing up a little, there's no late, there's no early. The videos are always available on YouTube after the fact. Everything's fine. So y'all can go ahead and guess who did the notes today based on the notes quality. The notes look real good today. And whenever the notes are really, really good, oh gosh, both of us just chucked the link in at the same time. Notes so nice, we gave them to you twice. Whenever you see stunningly beautiful notes, you know they probably came from Edda, right? So today we're going to look at some concepts around positioning that are a little bit old-fashioned. You're probably not going to use these days because now, if you're starting a greenfield project, and I'm just going to use a couple of terms that you might not have heard before, which is okay. Can I spell greenfield? A greenfield project is kind of a businessy term for a brand new project. If you were starting a brand new project, which is a brand new website today, you're probably not going to use floats, and you're probably not going to use Z-index either, even though I love to teach it. You're probably going to use Flexbox, which we've talked about earlier in this course. I'm almost sure. Or we're going to talk, you're likely going to use in a Greenfield project Grid, which you are so lucky you are going to learn about with Carmen, who's so good at Grid. You're probably going to see me in the chat Tuesday, Wednesday, because I am not great at Grid and I'll be learning along. So we're going to go zip, zip, zip really fast through some of these concepts. And you might see, and you might be asking, Jess, why are we learning them at all if they're going to be something we're less likely to see these days? And that's because you might see these in legacy code. And legacy code or legacy code base is when somebody else made that website or somebody else wrote that code. And it might be a lot of somebody else's. And you'll see floats in that, or you might say an existing code base. So legacy implies pretty old fashioned. Sorry, you're hearing the tap, tap, tap of the loudest computer in the world. An existing code base is just like, hey, here's code that existed before you got to see it. Mel is asking us, so hang on. Mel's asking a solid question about, hey, isn't it weird that? I'm terribly sorry. Mel's asking a, hey, isn't it weird question about floats? And this is really good. I'm sorry to flash it up and take it away. I'm going to talk about floats really briefly, and then we're going to talk about, yeah, what's weird. So floats, less common. Don't worry about them. So the natural flow of an HTML document and we've learned a little bit about this flow. So block or inline block displays are examples of CSS changing the default flow of a website. Nice, nice. Floats whoop, in CSS Or another, sorry, that whoop sound was not as illustrative as it was in my head. I'll get there. I'll make the whoop sound again, I promise. It's not what y'all are here for. Floats. Also, you've got, when you lay elements down, we've got an expected flow, the flow of your document, the normal document flow, the default document flow. A floated element is like you putting a little helium balloon under it and floating it to the left or to the right or up or down. So you're saying, hey, CSS in this case is saying to HTML, hey, HTML, I know that you've got an idea of where you wanted this element to go, but the person who's writing the CSS said to float this over here or over there. Yeah. So when you float something to the left or right of its container, it lets text and other inline elements wrap around it. It's removed from the rules of normal flow, but it's still part of a flow. And this is kind of weird. I like to think of this as a floated element is like an ambulance. You'd be like, Jess, what? Stick with me, stick with me. Ambulances drive on the road, right? Right? But most places, ambulances get a special exception. They can, if it's safe, they can run a red light. They can get all other cars to get out of their way if the other drivers are reasonable. So an ambulance is a lot like a float. So you say, hey, you're still on the road. You still have all of these other cars around you, or here, all of these other elements around you, and they're following their expected normal flow. But you have a special exception. I was thinking about ambulances a lot. So absolute positioning is different. I like to think of absolute positioning a little more like a helicopter. But hang on. We'll get there. We'll get there. So, for example, we can wrap text around an image. We can float the image to the left. And I'm going to come into the code that we've got in our tutorial here. Oh gosh, that is a super heckin' long URL, isn't she? I have no idea why I, by default, tend to gender code and technical systems, but here we are. So here, let's look at what we've got. We've got a link to our style sheet because we always have to do that. Here we've got a div with a class of container. Okay, it's not the most semantically specific, but maybe there's not a more specific one. We've got a placeholder image. Okay, and then when we look at the CSS, we've got, let's talk this through line by line and just talk about what's happening here. So our container class, cool. That was applied to the div we saw, stunning. We've drawn a border around it and we've added some padding inside it just to give it just to give it some size really. And here with this image, we're seeing that it's floating to the left and we've got this margin on the right of 20 pixels. What happens if we take that float left away? Oh, and then I think we need to reload, don't we? I would quite like you to reload, please. Everything is stressful, but this can't hurt us. We've moved over to the code sandbox for this. We're in our styles. Okay, here we are. Can y'all see now? Nice. So here, this is the normal document flow. Cool. When we add the float left, and we say, hey, please take this placeholder image. And we don't want it to follow the normal document flow rules, but we want the rest of the document to flow normally around it. Cool. And we had that really good point by Mel. And Mel, thank you very much for making this observation because floats are weird. Mel's saying, hey, I find it weird that floats will prevent other elements, like it'll cover other elements. It'll override their width and height by default. So why is that? I'm so sorry that I don't know why. I think floats are maybe just weird. Oh, and we've got some folks asking, oh, is Carmen supposed to be here today? Is she okay? Nope. We are mixing up the dates a little bit this week. So I'm going to be around today, and ha 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 ha, you're stuck with me tomorrow. Friday, you get the wonderful, beautiful Carmen. Monday, me, ha 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 ha. Then Tuesday and Wednesday to look at grid, you get Carmen again. And I'm coming back Thursday and Friday to teach animation because I'm selfish. Carmen's taking all of the stressful ones and letting me do the animation. As a spoiler, the animation lesson is the best one. So here, back in the day, so we learned a lot about sort of old presentational HTML when we learned about HTML. This is a really old-fashioned way to do this. So we used to use floats to set up columns or set up sections. And when we learned about Flexbox, Flexbox does this. Flexbox saying, hey, do me some columns. And that's effectively Flexbox's whole concept. I want to split these containers. I want to split these conceptual rectangles into columns. Nice. When you learn about grid next week with Carmen, CSS Grid gives you an additional layer of power where you say, hey, I want to draw a grid on this website and be able to control where things sit with both in columns and in rows. So here, there's a sort of a clear fix technique. So when you're using the floats, the parent elements, like Mel was kind enough to point out, happy and kind live next door to each other. So when you float elements, it can cause a problem where the parent element sort of collapses around it when their child elements are floated. The clear fix technique can be added to the container element to fix that. So here, adding the content. There's no content here yet. Don't worry about it. But this is the container, : after, content, nothing yet. The display is block, and clear is both. Yeah, let's come back. And we're going to go a little fast through these just because it's useful to know about these, but we're not going to write these day to day. Before Flexbox and Grid, yeah, those columns I was talking about, you had to float those around, and good gosh, there was a lot more swearing back in the day. Here's that clear fix technique we talked about right here in the CSS. And we've got a really helpful example of a CSS comment. So here, this clear fix CSS is just letting us reading the code know, hey, we might want to save this little block of code to use it later if we're planning on using floats. Okay, so what's relative positioning? And how does this differ from default static positioning? So we've got some hints. What do you think relative positioning might mean? We learned about relative and absolute units of measurement, and I think these are going to feel pretty similar. So HTML by default has that normal flow of a page. And by default, those have static positioning. When you put HTML elements on a page, they're going to boop, 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 sit in the same order as their default flow. Yeah. They'll start adding elements from the top, and in most cases, it gets to be a little different with texts for some languages, but the normal flow of a document in HTML will start filling in things in from the top to the bottom, and also fill things in from the left to the right. Okay. Relative position. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, my loves. Terrible at switching the tab. My effusive apologies. To be fair, I'm just looking at the notes. So usually the default flow, the relationship the elements have to where they sit on the page is where they appear in the code. First, coming in top to bottom, from the left to right. Cool. Relative positioning is when we say, hey, I want the position of this element to be specified, and I want it to be different from the normal flow, but keep the flow. So relative positioning is saying, hey, I want to change where this element sits within the normal flow. I still want the normal flow to exist. So this is again a lot like we've got our roads, we've got our existing traffic. Relative positioning is saying, you know what, I think this, oh gosh, that's a good question. Relative positioning is a lot like another ambulance. So, hey, here is a element or a vehicle that's gotten an excuse or a reason. It's gotten a permission slip to do something where it sits outside the normal flow. So we're going to move the element by giving it new coordinates. Gosh, here's a really good question. And I was asking, well, could we ever use position with a float? For example, position a container with a floating image. Yeah, let's try that. I don't think I've ever used that in practice. Oh gosh, actually, I was going to say, let's test this out. But Edda is helpfully backstage and trying to keep us on track so we can do more cat drawing and saying, hey, oh, backing me up on the is probably not common, but you can. Ooh. Also, to remind us to hurry on to our cat drawing is my cat just joining us on the table. Thank you, Aria. So here we've got an example of an element given the relative class. And this class, we get to choose a name. It could be anything. But here, relative is human readable. We've set our position to relative and said, this will not follow the normal document flow, but the normal document flow will still exist. I'm saying, oh, let's come over here and see about the code. So here, this element is just our regular document flow. It started at the top and on the left and put that element right up here. But let's look at our CSS first to see what we've got. Okay, we've got a link to. Thank you, Aria. I need to be able to see my keyboard, Miss Baby. I do apologize. The lessons are right around their dinner time and they are woefully spoiled. So, get our link to our CSS. Here we've got our class of relative being implied. And here we've got some text, the same a line of text. And instead of that being right up at the top, the first element at the top left, we see our styles being applied. And we're saying, please go ahead and draw me a border around the body so I can understand where this element usually would have sit. So what we're doing by adding this border is just sort of showing ourselves, hey, this is sort of the, in video games term, the hitbox of where this would have sat in the static flow. But we've used this relative class to say, hey, I want to set the position to relative. I want to set my own rules for this. And I want this to be 30 pixels from the top and move this 30 pixels out from the left. Lucy makes a solid point. Cats do not respect document flow. And other folks have pointed out that my cat has helpfully floated left. You all can't see it, but she is currently chewing on my books, which I have brought for the z-index example. So someone is, no, I'm lying. I was like, someone's not getting any treats. But let's be honest with ourselves. Okay, so relative positioning is relative to the page and still absolutely exists within a context where the document flow still exists. It's got a permission slip to not respect the document flow, but the document flow is still there. What if we want an agent of chaos? We want to say, hey, look, I want, so here, we're moving the element within the document flow based on its new coordinates. That's okay. And now for absolute, we're either positioning it closest to our, so we are not changing its location based on the document flow the way we are with relative positioning. We're changing its position based on either the closest positioned ancestor, so um, who is located near it that it can find that it's related to, or it's going to be positioned relative to the container block, which is usually the viewport. Let's come over here and see what the heck that means. I'm going to share this tab. So we can absolutely move a position element using top, bottom, left, and right. And that's going to specify how far it is away from the edges of the containing element. Oh, I'm so sorry. Um, gosh, I didn't mean to laugh at y'all. So we have a really, really good question, but someone asking, not to be rude, but is Etta real or AI? How is she so fast? How is she so good? Etta is joyously human, although I never, ever miss an opportunity to be annoyingly delighted with folks I've gotten to work with. And Etta, so smart, so capable. She speaks like a whole bunch of human languages. She's good at everything, way better at literature than me. Like all the stuff I pride myself on, Etta's even better. And she's so nice that you can't even hate her for it. It's disgusting. So talented. Oof. So here, the thing that we need to remember is, so we're not moving relative to the flow, the document where it would have been in the document flow. We're setting it to relative to either its nearest ancestor, so its parent, or if it can't find a parent, don't worry about it. What we're going to set it to be absolutely positioned against is relative to the viewport. So here, what's really difficult to remember for both relative and absolute is when you say top, it's going to push down. Isn't that rubbish? So I always try and think of floats and relative and absolute positioning as pushing from the direction specified. So here we've saying setting top 30 pixels. I'm saying push this 30 pixels from the top. Oh, left 30 pixels, that's my right. Left 30 pixels is oop, push this from the left 30 pixels. Is that okay? All right. Absolute positioning is really good for creating floating UI elements. So if you want to have like a nav bar that scrolls down with the user as they scroll down, that could be a really good way to do that. But I don't love floating navs and floating tooltips and draw. I don't really love them from a accessibility perspective, and they annoy me. So we've got these fantastic examples because Etta is Etta. We've got three divs. And y'all already know that I would probably fuss at you for writing this code because these divs, all the same thing. There's no semantics here. First, we could take a look at how these would sit in the normal document flow. And the way we're going to look at them is by drawing a black line around them, giving them some width and height, making that square have a size, and then giving them a bottom margin. So giving a little space between them. So boom, 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 three squares, stunning. Oh, heck, heck, heck. I'm not sure. My effusive apologies, my loves. So let's try that again. We've got three divs, div, div, div. And we've drawn a box around them and given them a size. And here we got our three divs, div, div, div. But let's take the second div. Oh, and look at this clever, clever way. So we saw this once really briefly, but this code's going to feel really specific. So it says, hey, I want to set a CSS rule for a div, but I'm going to use the nth child pseudo class, and I want to set it to the second. So here I'm saying, if you see divs, I want these rules that I'm specifying inside the CSS inside my curly braces to apply only to the second div if there is one. Nice. So here, we're going to change our position to relative. 30 pixels from the top, 30 pixels from the left. We're going to turn that one hot pink to make it look. So looks like this. We've got our first div exactly where we saw it before, boop, right at the top. And then from where that second div would have sat, we push it down. So we push it from the top 30 pixels, and then we push it from the left 30 pixels. Weird, stressful, right? How much do we love it? How cursed is it? Oh gosh, and I'm seeing some folks in the chat saying they're having especially stressful times right now. I'm so sorry, my loves. One thing is, please, 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 we love learning with y'all. All of these lessons always stick around. All of these videos always stick. There are no deadlines. There's no hurry. There's no, I have to have this done before tomorrow. Mm-mm. So we looked at this flow with relative positioning. Let's look at absolute positioning. So this time, div nth child second, same. I'm telling my browser that if it sees divs on a page, first one, don't worry about it. Second, if you see a second one, give me these rules. And here our position is absolute instead. Push from the top 30 pixels, push to the left 30 pixels, and we still hot pink because that's a winner of a color. Look at that. I'm so sorry. This element no longer respects the normal document flow at all. It's doing its own thing. So it's like, hey, look, 30 pixels from the top of the viewport, 30 pixels pushed left from the viewport and overlapping with its siblings. Weird, cool, cursed. Okay, what about fixed and sticky? So we've been talking about the normal document flow. If an element has a fixed position, it's again a permission slip to not respect the normal document flow. It gets removed from that and it stays relative to the viewpoint. I always think of this as if you've got, oh gosh, oh, if we have folks who are speakers of other languages, I don't have one right now, but do you know those little sticky pads of paper that you often see in offices? I would love to know what sticky notes are called in other languages, and that's just me being curious. But I like to think of an element with um, fixed position as a sticky note being stuck to a certain place in your viewport so that when your user moves around on the page, they scroll down, they scroll up, they're still going to see that element stuck like a sticky note or stuck like glue right there. It's useful for headers or nav bars that you want to stay visible all the time. Here we've got our code, we've got a header, nice, that H1 for fixed header. And here we've got a paragraph from Lorem Ipsum. Here for our CSS, look at this. Our header, I'm saying, look. I always want that header. I always want that H1 that says fixed header. I always want that to show on my screen, even if I scroll around, even if I moved. If an element is positioned using sticky, the element will stay in the normal document flow, but as a user scrolls down on the page, the sticky element will move up the page whoop, until it hits the top or hits a certain point. So fixed will always be on the same spot in a viewport. Sticky will sort of come up, it will flow with the user scrolling up, and then usually stop and stay on the screen when it hits the top. I'm having a hard time. Let's look at the examples for these. So here's our fixed header. And as we can see, it covers our content sometimes. It's always staying in the exact same spot. Okay, fair. Ooh, let's come down and say sticky. Oh, excuse me. Our sticky also is covering this, but it's moving a bit. All right, sticky's coming down. It's not moving past a set spot. Yeah, isn't that weird? Oh, this is such a good question. Mel's saying, hey, in the free CodeCamp editors, the edit examples with sticky and fixed have a margin at the top, even when you remove all the margins from the element. Oh, that's such a good question. Do sticky and fixed add white space? I'm going to ask Edda to grab the MDN for that because I don't think they do. But you make a solid point that. Okay, the position. I'll keep the CSS from here. Both these have a margin at the top. So the margin at the top here, I think, is the 30 pixels positioning. Yeah, so that's weird. I wonder if it does have a little bit of a default margin. Yeah. I will kindly ask Edda to look this up while we're doing this and see if we can get you an answer. Yeah, this is one of the many, many reasons I like learning with y'all. I'm really learning alongside you much more than teaching you, which is a joy and a privilege. Because y'all will go ahead and ask questions for things that I've never, ever stopped to look at. So here, we've got an example of fixed. And we've got some code examples for sticky if you want to grab these and play with them in your own time. Yeah, it may just be the default margin and padding that comes with the H1 element. All right, it's time. It's time. Z index, Z index, Z index, Z index. Whenever possible, please don't use Z index, even though it's fun and even though it's silly. Because Z index will get you in trouble the exact same way important in CSS will get you in trouble. Once you start layering Z indexes, it's so tempting to say, we'll get to it. Remind me as I'm talking about Z index, talk to you about the temptation to set Z index to 1,000, because that is my biggest temptation. Z index is about where in the stack of elements that are coming in front of each other, things when they overlap. So here we've got our 3 divs again. Hello, 3 divs, and they're sitting in our container class. Stunning. Here, our container class, we've went ahead and we've drawn the black boxes around those. Give them some space. We made it positions relative. Here, we're setting the rule to say, within the container, our first div, let's leave that position of absolute, but let's take the Z index and set it to 1. Oh, yeah. So folks are asking really, really helpfully, when I set my Z index to 1, when I move the Z index higher, am I pushing it forward or am I pushing it back? Higher Z indexes move them closer to the front of the page. Lower Z indexes move them further back. So it is tempting to get to the end of the day and say, hey, my boss is yelling at me. I want to go home. I've got this one element that I want to be on top of these other elements and it's not working. I'm just going to set the Z index to 1,000. Boom, it's on the top of all the other elements. I get to go home. Why might that not be a super good idea? And as a hint, it's the exact same reason we don't want to start using important in our code. So here, our first one has a Z index of 1, and that's going to be hot pink. Our second div is going to have a Z index of 3, and that's going to be light green. And our third is going to be orange and it has a Z index of 2. Without scrolling down to see the pictures, please, 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 could you tell me which of these are going to be on top? So I'll just put in the chat, we've got hot pink has a Z index of 1. Light green has a Z index of 3. And orange has a Z index of 2. And somebody who's not me, before I scroll down, tell me what is going to be on the top, bottom, and last in sort of this pancake stack. Okay. User's just like, hey, 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 you know what? I see 3 numbers here. Number 3 is the biggest, and it's going to be on top. And Lucy's just like, you know what? Is light green on top? And I think Lucy is being very, very kind and adding that question mark, even though I'm pretty sure. Oh, dang. Oh, I like these colors as well. Ooh, I'm going to steal those. These look very similar to what I've used on my website. They're solid. Neo-brutalism, always a great design choice. So with a Z index of 3, that light green is at the top. With the Z index of 2, that orange is in the middle. And with a Z index of 1, the hot pink. I like to do this with books. I've got a, great. I have, gosh, I've got 4 books here. I know, Eulito makes a solid point to be like, biggest number on top is such a weird way to do it. Why wouldn't 0 be on top? Look. Everything's first, everything's weird. Oh, baking. I see a question here. Why wouldn't I want to do this with checkboxes to check and uncheck? I'm so sorry, I don't quite understand this question. Could you ask it like in a little bit of a longer way? So here, let's say that I have these 4 books, and these are, I've tried to pick different colored books. So I've got a white book, I've got a blue book, I've got a green book, and I've got a yellow book. And by default, let's say we have the yellow is 0, green is 1, blue is 2, and white is, oh, so sorry, not 0. 1 for yellow, 2 for green. I'm holding these upside down. I'm so sorry, my love. Let's try this again. Okay, so I've got 4 books. Ooh, I'm reading a lot of these right now, so recommend. So white, blue, green, yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. If I want to make sure that this yellow is always on the bottom, I could go through and juggle the index. I said this index, Z index right now is 4. If I want the green one to be on top, I could do this the right way. I could say, I'm going to change the Z index of the yellow book to make it 3. And I'm going to change the Z index of the green book to make it 4. Okay. That way, when it displays, ba-bum, the green book will be on top. And the yellow book, which is unfortunately white on the cover, is going to be second. So think of these as a stack of pancakes that get wielded at the user. So what's really tempting to do is it's the end of your day. You're tired. You want to go home. And what you want is you want this green book to be always on the bottom of the stack. I always want the green book to be all the way in the background. I'm going to set the Z index of this green book to -1000. And you could do that. That's going to work. That is absolutely going to make sure that the green book is always on the bottom until the next time you are in a hurry and you're doing a little bit of a hack and you say, oh, no, 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 my design has changed. And now this blue book, which is a Record of a Spaceborne Few, strongly recommend. And you say, oh, I'm going to use my 1,000 trick. I'm going to say the blue book is about, oh, oh, I've already got, okay. Mel's got me. Fine, I've already got something at 1,000. I'm going to put it at minus 2,000. So it gets really, in order to do z-index correctly and keep them 1, 2, 3, 4, and make them as human readable as possible, it takes a lot of fiddling every time you want to change that code. And the temptation to say, I'm going to set my z-index to 1,000 to make sure it's on top. Oh, heck, something else needs to be on top. I'm going to set it to 5,000. Like z-index inflation catches up with you real quick. Actually, and the very last week of the boot camp, we're going to have a couple of classes where we don't have any planned session material because we will have finished it. And we're just going to answer people's questions about their projects. And if folks want to talk about books, I'm sure we can probably lure Etta on to talk about that books with us. Maybe, no pressure. But we've got some time. Let's draw a cat. CSS art is a thing. Tons of people draw really, really detailed art just using CSS, and it's a joy. I am not good at it, but I want to tell you a secret, which is you do not have to be good at art to enjoy art. Isn't that fantastic? So we're going to make this cat, but we're going to have a silly little time. Here, we're going to add a link element in so the head, we're going to add a link that links to our style sheet, but we've done this a million times before, so we're just going to skip to the next step. Y'all aren't going to, but we are. So we're going to use the universal selector. Gosh, what was the universal selector? Was root the universal selector? If it's not, it's going to give us an error. So we're going to set our box sizing. We're going to spell something right. To border box. And what this is going to do is this is going to say, hey, every time we're looking at a specified width and height, every time we're specifying a size for the element, please go ahead and make sure, browser, that you're accounting for any padding when you're doing this. This is saying, hey, hey, hey. Oh, heck. I'm so sorry, my loves. Y'all are all yelling at me, and y'all are all yelling absolutely correctly. Yes. The stars, thank you. Where are we? Oh, cool. So Bacon was saying, hey, if we had checkboxes in a form, you could set the unchecked style with a fill and the z-index and the check style with a check mark. Oh, so you could say the check mark is sort of behind. I got it. So we've got some built-in behavior. So by default, you're going to have a check visual display already built in to form checkboxes. So this is really creative. This is really interesting to say, oh, you could have this behind it and expose it. I'd be a little concerned that this might not be super accessible because both of these are going to be, both the checkbox and the X would be in the document flow, but that is so chaotic. I love this question. This is making me spiral. I'm going to lovingly push this back to you to say, hey, if we had two buttons stacked on top of each other in a z-index and one hides the other, do both buttons get pushed when you click the top one or just the top one? This is a delightfully cursed question, which I have never considered. Mel, I'm so sorry that asking a really good question has just gotten you not homework because you're grown. If I could lovingly ask you to try this really fast, just copy and paste a couple of buttons into a into even the code editor here. I'd love to. So I'm going to focus on the cat, but can I ask you to look at that and tell us how that did? Check our code. Here we're giving our body a background element. I'm just going to skip that and move to the next stage because we've got that. Back in our HTML, we're going to create a main element. The main is, well, we'll do this part. So this, being real fussy on what we do and what we don't do. And I'm being real fussy because I want to do the fun parts. Adding a main. And here we're making a div. And y'all know I don't love divs because they're not real specific. But in this case, all of these divs are different aspects of our painting. Here, the class is for cat head. And I bet they know what they're doing when they say to make this a class. But I wonder if you're only ever going to have one cat head per picture. I mean, maybe somebody's going to draw multiple cats. Here, let's use a CSS selector for the cat head class. And let's use our curly braces to, yeah, start drawing our cat head. We're going to add a width of 205 pixels. We're going to add a height of 180 pixels. We're going to add a border of, I'm going to copy and paste this over, 1 pixel solid #000. Oh, you know what? You are absolutely correct, my lovely. Sorry, that's terribly overly familiar. And this is a big case of do as I say and not as I do. So, hey, use semantic HTML. But we often seem to be reaching for divs as we learn. Yeah, y'all are very, very patient. So we've drawn that box around it. So far, this does not feel like a cat head. Does anybody remember what border radius does? And it's always a weird, weird concept because border radius is the bendification level of different elements. So we've bendified this by 46%, and let's keep going. Hey, you knew it was time for a bumper real fast. Bootcamp is free. Free Code Camp is free. But Free Code Camp is also a registered charity. So don't spend money y'all don't have. This is just life advice. I'm not telling you what to do. If you want to, and if you have the cash, and if you found their curricula valuable for you, donating to them is a really nice thing to do. But the whole, like, money's hard these days. Do not spend money you don't have, please. User, absolutely. So that rounds the corners is a much better way to say that. Okay, and folks are really helpfully saying like, hey, 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 when we finish this cat, the cat's little shine spots in the eyes have mirror symmetry instead of light spots from the way they would hit with an external light source. And you're absolutely correct. This ad was indeed sponsored by Free Code Camp. So we're gonna go. Oh, I love a linear gradient. Did y'all get to learn about this with Carmen when she got to do background color? And that was linear gradient. Is this how we do those? I love them, but I never get to do those. Do you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do this together. Linear gradient CSS, MDN. I know web searching in order to find the thing on MDN, it's extra stuff. So it's a function. Okay, that's what I thought. Linear gradient. Okay. Background. So we don't have to say background color. Cool, cool, cool. Background linear gradient. Okay. The color. Yeah. Let's try this. I'm going to grab that. I cheerfully always forget different. Yeah. The nice thing is, the more we look them up, the more they'll stick in our heart. Is that where the comma goes? that where the comma goes? No. Let's try one then the other. The other thing I quite like is that I'll put commas between all these. Okay. So I'm so sorry that Mel asked the best, most interesting first question ever was like, what happens if we use z-index to stack two buttons on top of each other? And Mel was saying, okay. And we said, Mel, please check and come back. Please let us know. And Mel said, okay, I didn't do buttons yet, but I did try it with two anchor elements stacked on top of each other. And when you click on two anchor elements, one which is a z-index sitting on top of the other, clicking on the top one sends you to the URL on the top one. Oh, buttons may be different if anyone else wants to try that. Okay. Oh, so it looks like this is how we do this. Yeah. So we'll want the hex code, the percentage, then a comma. And let's come back here and let's format this out a little bit better. Oh, it's background, not background color. That might be what's getting me. Stunning. Lucy, you are so sweet. Thank you very much. And y'all are so, so kind. So Lucy just out here like, Jess, it's not background color, is it? It's basic. Come on, get it together, Jess. And yeah, we can make silly little mistakes. Okay, so this experiment Mel took us on with like, let's stack our lengths. What's maybe a reason we don't want to do that? It is weird and it is cursed, and I loved cursed websites, but it's going to be sort of, ooh, what's that going to look like with a, how's that going to be perceived with a screen reader? I wonder if this is going to be one case where it's going to be more accessible for folks using assistive technology than folks trying to visually perceive it. I love it. I love it. I love a cursed website. So let's go ahead and set the position to static. And I'm saying, hey, you know what? We're going to have a bunch of things on this page. Just go ahead and don't move my cat head around. Cat can move it herself. Absolute. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah. Static is the default position. We know, we saw it. Okay. Oh gosh, this is giving us a reminder of what we saw in our notes. I was just trying to follow it top to bottom, and that's not it. Make it static, so don't move my cat head around. I'm using this. She's using it. We set our top to 100 pixels. And I'm going to push this left 100 pixels. Yeah, that's feeling all right. Let's keep drawing our cat. So yeah, Mel's asking, oh, would screen readers or folks using tab navigation be able to focus on the bottom element? I'm not super sure. I would imagine tab navigation should be able to see it or to access it, but if you wanted to do something exciting first like that, I would definitely do a lot of accessibility testing. So here, nothing happens. Our cat head didn't move because it's static. If we used relative, we would have seen this move relative to its flow. Let's change it to relative and boom, she jumped that 100 pixels pushed down from the top and the 100 pixels pushed over from the left. Stunning. We're just going to do a couple more of these together, and I'm being really selfish. I like doing. Y'all have learned a lot about me over this course, and it's mostly I have horrible cats. I constantly say web development can't hurt us, and I'm very selfish about doing the tasks I like. So I set this to absolute, and that moved just a little. And what's happening here is that the absolute one is saying, hey, don't worry about the regular document flow. Don't worry about where this would have sit. Go ahead and position this to its nearest parent. If you don't have the parent, don't worry about it. Set it relative to the viewport. Okay, so, and then we've got a lot of flexibility. We could set our top and left to any positive pixel value and say down 10 from the top and yeah, 10 and 10. Just boop. So fixed is a position that makes it fixed on the page no matter what. Yeah. So in order to make that work, we're going to have to create a div with the class of box. And our div has to close as well. Are we going to put, okay, I'm going to check our code. So here, we're going to go ahead and start setting some rules for box. And unfortunately, I think we're probably going to have to escape in a second. This is such a fun one. Like you just pointing out that like tab navigation, it might be really interesting to add some extra content that's tab navigable and maybe using the visually hidden tricks we learned yesterday. Oh gosh. Mel's just, so we talked about earlier in the boot camp, when you don't know something, that's okay. That your options are you can try and look it up. You can reread the documentation, if there's documentation, if there's instructions. You can ask somebody to see if they know, or you can get weird. And I absolutely love that Mel's just in the background, like, hold on, I'm getting weird and reporting back. I am going to be so cruel as to let y'all continue to draw this cat by yourself because it's going to be really exciting. I find doing CSS art is one of the most satisfying ways to play with CSS. It's like the concept of getting to draw using creativity, using letters. It feels like magic, doesn't it? Like I'm going to make a silly little cat out of light and electricity and code and words. Oh, but let's talk about what else is going to happen. Please finish, if you haven't, the cat building painting one. And the other one that I'm going to ask y'all to do is, I love this. The cat one's like, follow this step. Here, it's draw a house. Draw me the weirdest, loveliest, silliest art house you can think of that still meets the user requirements. If you're just going to rush through and just meet the requirements, you might be able to do this in an afternoon. But if you want to take the time to get weird, there are no deadlines. You can take the time to get as weird as you want. What I do is I'll often make something that passes the requirements, and then when I have more time, go back and get weird. But before tomorrow, please, we've got another lightly cursed one where we do have some more theory. We're going to talk about attribute selectors and how it can be used to target links and title attributes. Mel, you've been experimenting with links and having a silly little time. You might find these really useful. We're also going to target elements with the lang and dated lang attributes. So we've got some more theory. And then we're going to have another project, which will probably take you a couple of days to finish on your own. And this one is a little bit more boring. I'm sorry. So we'll look at some of the steps to this, but this is like, hey, use CSS to make a kind of boring feeling ledger. We're learning the boring stuff so we can do the fun stuff. We'll ask you to read the selectors review and take notes. And as always, y'all are fantastic. There's no grades. You're not cheating, but make sure you're taking the tests, the quizzes on your own. Yeah. I'm so sorry that I am going to escape until tomorrow. I am going to see you all tomorrow, and you will joyously get to trade me for Carmen on Friday. Until then, I'll still be in Discord if y'all need anything, and I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. Bye, team.